back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Boom. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my Mcfarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now, today we will take a look at the next figure from the collector's edition from Mcfarlane, and that is Adam Strange. Now, previously I did take a look at Deadshot, which was a pretty solid release from Mcfarlane. Now, although I have had this one for a couple of weeks, wasn't decided on how I wanted to tackle it because there was some repainting I wanted to do, but I wanted to have an extra one before I did that. And right on cue, as I thought that, I did end up finding another one of these at Walmart in the collector section. A lot of dead shots, but I also did start seeing a lot of the Adam Strange, so I picked up another one. So in total, that means that I picked up 3 of these figures, 2 standards, and I did procure the platinum version. Now, the platinum one looks pretty cool, but per usual, I don't usually open those until I find another one for retail price. I don't want to, pay scalper prices. And sometimes even eventually I open it up just to have an open platinum version of the character. But for right now, I do not think it is needed. Now, he does look pretty unofficial in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Only difference being is that the collector's edition do have a silver stamped logo. He also has his data file card. On the front, you do have an image from the source material from the comics. Now, there are alternate versions of Adam Strange. If you go way back to his original appearance, you have a certain look, but also over time, his look has changed. Now, this figure specifically is based on this version of him in the comics, which was pretty popular. And it is also very rare that we get an Adam Strange figure, so pretty cool, pretty hyped about that. On the back, you do have some information. Now, Adam Strange does go into a lot of the lore of DC Comics. I remember him from Batman Brave and the Bold, as well as pretty obscure stories in the comic books. A lot of the times, I think he goes up against the Fangorians or whatever the Hawkman's race is, that he's into that battle because since he patrols space, he's gotten mixed up into that whole Hawk World battle. So pretty interesting. Now he does come with a pretty nice assortment of accessories. He comes with 2 alternate gripping hands, which is pretty nice. I kind of wish they would have gave us 1 open splayed hand so that you could pose him a lot more dynamic. But we can always fix that and give him an alternate hand later on. He also comes with 3 face plates. Now, right now I have the smirking look because I kind of feel it fits him a little bit more. But you also have a stern face plate, standard, straightforward look. You also have a screaming face, which this is a lot of people's favorites out of the face plates from Mcfarlane. And you have 1 C-19 mask. I guess this is for like when he travels through space, so he doesn't have to breathe in any particles or space herpes or anything like that. So pretty cool. And then of course he has his space blaster. Now this one is white. I did go ahead and do some repainting on him, so we'll take a look at that towards the end of the video. But this is pretty much matching up with his costume in the comics when he's wearing these colors. So nothing is wrong here. It's just that this is a certain version of him. While I prefer him more in that suit that has some silver tint to it, some silver throughout the costume, I just think it gives him a more regal and space look. So that's it. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at this guy. Now, pretty cool. Another accessory, even though it's not necessarily an accessory, is his rocket pack. Now, this is removable if you take off the arms. It is very easy to remove this. That is how I removed it to paint it. So, if you want to get specific, this is also an accessory that you could take off and on. First impressions, this is a great looking Adam Strange figure. Hits all the points. Of course, there's going to be little nitpicks that I do not enjoy, things that are pretty cool, and things that I don't agree with. But as far as being an Adam Strange figure, it fits the bill. You can definitely use this guy to fill out your DC Universe shelf and collection. Pretty standard costume. I like the way they did the two-tone. You have like a darker, more maroon red, and then you have a little bit more of a brighter standard red, as well as being separated by the white and the yellow gloves and boots really makes him pop out. So if you needed an Adam Strange for your shelf, this guy really does it for you. Let's take a closer look at the head sculpt. Once again, faceplate technology allows you to move from different expressions, and for displays, you can have them screaming, which is a lot of people's favorite way to have him. But I enjoy this quirky, kind of smirking look. Now, the faceplates do fit pretty snug onto the head, so there's no problem there. And you do get the standard details of an Adam Strange, which is his fin, his crest on the top of his headgear, and you get some little different touches like the gold emblem on the front, the circular discs on the sides. Pretty cool. Now, one thing I thought was pretty interesting is that they gave him this neck, kind of neck guard or neck ring around his neck, and it is actually floating. So if you wanted to, you could remove this. And man, I really wish they would have used that on our Orion figure. Remember that I customized mine and added a ring collar to him to make him look more like the comics. And that was, and I really wish they would have done that with him, but maybe they didn't have this idea or this, mold for this technology at that point. But I still think it really would have worked well with that Orion figure. But like I said, it floats, so it moves around, but it does match up with the look in the comics. As far as articulation goes, kind of stiff because it is pretty tight to the shoulder. So he looks down, but not too far. Looks up as well, but can't really look way up for flying poses. You got right to left, and of course, you could tilt his head for some character. Now, I do extend the neck peg later on in the video, so stick around and check out how much more range it gives his head just by extending that neck peg even a slight millimeter. Once again, great costume. Now, one thing I want to get into, and I'll talk about that later when I bring out the DC Universe Classics version, and that is that a lot of the things are just painted on. Like you have the gloves are just painted on. The different colors of his suit are just different paint. They don't have any border or any sculpting to separate it or anything like that. You also have down at the bottom underneath the pouch, he's supposed to have a strap that holds his holster there, and they just painted on a white band to represent that strap. Pretty cheap, Mcfarlane, but I guess it is a way to get around having to mold it out. And that brings me into something pretty cool, and that is that I do like the holster that they used on him. It is a new mold. We've never seen this holster. Really wish they would have used this with the Captain Cold, which of course I added my own holster. So once again, having something that they could have used for Captain Cold, maybe they just didn't have the mold at that point in time. But the costume was good. At least they sculpted out the belt, which fits with the comic book look. And of course, articulation is per usual for McFarlane. You got side to side at the waist. You got the full tilt-a-whirl, lower waist swivel, upper chest swivel. You could twist them, get them in some cool action poses. T-pose pretty simply. You got the shoulder socket and bushing joint, which gives you a lot of range and movement up and down. Got a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows that look pretty clean, down into the gloves, which once again I said they're just painted in, but they do the job nonetheless. Horse two fist here, you can change out his hand to hold his blaster and give him different looks. Going back down to the lower part to the thighs, of course, he has a slight thigh swivel. You could add on to this by doing some mods, but that way you can move the boot from side to side without having thigh cut. Kicks up respectively, kicks back pretty far as well. Now don't be afraid, the rubber in the trunks moves out of the way, and when you put them back, they go back to their original form. Double jointed knees, straighten them out, up and down at the ankle, right to left, rocker, and of course toe articulation. So pretty standard now from Mcfarlane. Pretty nice that Mcfarlane is tightening up his whole process, even though he only has one more year in the line to go. But we should see around at least 60, 80, maybe even 100 figures by the time the line ends. Take a look at him from the bottom. No tread, but he does have some identifying marks. Moving up the back. Pretty simple, no sculpt work. Once again, you see that band that they didn't sculpt in for the holster, and now you get into the rocket pack. Pretty nice sculpt. Now, I did battle with this because I thought they would have used that Green Lantern rocket pack that they've had since the beginning of the line, but they went ahead and sculpted a whole new rocket pack. Now, I think they did this so he wouldn't constantly have the flames coming out from the bottom, but that kind of gave you a whole new problem, and that was you would have had to make some portholes and plug in the apparatus to make the flames punch out, and I guess they just didn't want to go that extra step. Now, I did look into it myself, what would work the best, and we'll take a look at that here pretty soon. But all in all, very happy with this Adam Strange figure. Glad to add him to the collection, as well as I am glad that pretty much I've been seeing him in all of my Walmart, so it wasn't hard to pick up another one. All you have to do is pretty much go to the collector section. You can, go to the toy aisle just to look around. Maybe somebody took a figure and left it at the toy aisle, but pretty much Mcfarlane is being stocked in the collector section. Now, of course, I do have the DC Universe Classics Adam Strange, and like I said, once again, pretty nice figure. They did a good job with this one. He is based on a completely different version of Adam Strange. Now, one thing I do want to remind you is a lot of the details on his costume are just painted on. He has on his body basically no sculpt work. The biggest sculpt work is, of course, his helmet. But this one does represent those silver tones that I prefer on Adam Strange. So it still is a pretty classic looking Adam Strange. He also has a holster here on his chest, which is very reminiscent of his look in the comic. Two completely different versions of Adam Strange. Now, I did want to take a lot of the aspects of the silver on this Adam Strange and port it onto this Mcfarlane version. So I did go ahead and do some repainting. Now I repainted the crest silver, also the ear discs I did in silver, and I repainted the rocket pouch. Now I did that by removing it, as I said before. It's easy to remove. Just pop off his arms, and that rocket pack slips right off. But I think those silver added accents just give him a more pure look. And I love the way the silver pops off in the light. Really great. Now, I also painted his blaster, and of course, it works perfectly in his holster. You can also pop out the alternate hand and have him, firing the blaster or getting ready to use the angry faceplate, which a lot of people like to use. Now, the other thing was, of course, the blast from the rocket pack. Now, I thought at first that I would be able to use this I think they were from Batman Beyond, and I may still figure out a way to do it. I think I just have to heat it up and split the blast a little bit more to get it to fit, but you will have to drill a hole maybe in one of the portholes, that way it would fit in. Then I had the idea, there's two blast effects here, they're different. You would have to drill a hole in each one of the ports and stick these inside, and that would work as well. But the easiest thing I found was these blast effects from Geoforce, and it works pretty well because all it does is you slip it over the tanks instead of trying to make something that ports in. This actually ports on the outer part of it. You do have two of them, so when you put those in, and it kind of gives a cool sort of blast off effect, like it's enveloping the whole tanks because of the force that it has. So I thought that worked good enough for now to take some figure photography. I may end up trying to work on that first one again to get it to fit, because traditionally he has one trail of blast, not two. But for all intents and purposes, it worked out pretty well. So pretty happy with this Adam Strange. As I said, you can find him at Walmart if you go out there and hunt. But for what he is, collector's edition Adam Strange, I'm very happy with. So anyways, guys, that's it for now. Try and get out some more videos. Now, I am working on two projects for the city right now, so I'm really busy. I've also been doing a cut in the gym, so that's kind of been a little bit difficult. But I will try and pump out some more vids. We've got a long way to go, as well as I am very open to seeing what Mattel has in store for us, and that's going to be in the future. Some more content, comparisons, what will happen with McFarlane's part of making DC. All of that is up in the air for now. But anyways, you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next